there's an article in The Guardian, and I didn't even know we had any shantytowns in Europe. I did not know that was a thing. So in central Spain, there's this place, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but Cañada Real is it's the Europe's biggest shantytown, and they have had no power for 2 years. None. No electricity. They just cut it off.
Who cut it off? The government cut it off, or they just
the energy company. They had to have an emergency shutdown. They're claiming through illegal overuse, and they shut it down. I think there might have been problems with their supply. I don't know. The articles are very clear about that. Seems shady as fuck. And then it's been 2 years, and then the lucky, well-off so-called people, some of them have had solar panels on their house, on top of their shanties. So they're lucky, supposedly. And then other people have been able to get petrol generators. And
good.
Not really. For 4 hours of electricity, it costs them £4.40. So that's what, like $7 or $8 for 4 hours of electricity.
Wow.
Yeah.
We have so the woman who has proclaimed herself the Queen of Canada has told people that they no longer have to pay their energy bills. So apparently there's a woman who made a TikTok about it, like she thinks she's the hero. So I think she's in New Brunswick. The energy company was coming to cut off her energy, and she was like, I don't understand why he's doing this. I sent every month with my bill for 5 months a royal decree that I don't have to pay my energy bills.
Oh my God. What illness even is that?
You know what is funny? I saw a video this morning. Oh, by the way, welcome to 44 and 1, GVizzle, Tempest, link, like, subscribe, all that stuff. I saw this video this morning. This woman had, there was this thing going around that students in Nova Scotia who identify as furries, the schools were putting litter boxes in the schools so they can use them. So this is, apparently it's been making the rounds for the past couple of years, and immediately it was debunked as being false. But there were 2 people who made videos about it on TikTok, like, I can't believe this is happening. Why is this even happening? And this woman made a video this morning saying, like, why is it that those are the same people who tell you to do your research about vaccines?
Yeah.
And they don't spend a second Googling, do schools have litter boxes?
Yeah.
No, they do not, in case you're wondering.
Mind you, though, we are in an era now where ridiculous sounding things like that they sound more and more true every day.
But it's also things taken out of context, right? Like there was a picture going around on Reddit years ago about kids crouched in I think it was a tornado or hurricane drill position, which is the same position that Muslims get in when they pray. But they weren't facing the right direction. They didn't have, like, it wasn't, they were just against walls. And people are like, see, this is what happens when you let Muslims into the school. They're forcing our kids to pray. And everyone's like, it's a tornado drill. Like, relax.
I remember another one where this one came from the left, where it was they were trying to make out that somebody was being executed, or it was supposed to be like American soldier brutality and stuff. And there was a guy crouched down, and then there was a gun pointed at the back of his head or something. And then like that little snippet went out, and then people believed it. And then they found somebody got hold of the full picture, and it was just the context was totally different. No, there was another one from the Great Depression or something, and it's still used now. I've still seen it in articles come up, and like I've seen it come up in like feminist orientated stuff, left wing stuff, right wing stuff. I've seen loads of people use it. I can't remember who took the picture, but the reporter that took the picture, like basically it was the whole misinformation thing. So she wanted to try and kind of spin the Great Depression stuff a bit. And then she found a woman sitting there with her kids near like this big caravan of people who were on the move because of the Depression or something. And then this woman, she was just sitting there looking really tired and a bit defeated, and she had her kids around her and all of their worldly belongings. And the woman was like, oh my God, can I use this picture? And then, like, she interviewed the woman to find out what was going on. And then it was supposed to be about a single mother, like being ditched by a husband and stuff. And like, here she is with all her stuff and her kids, and they're all fucked. And it was nothing like that at all. their car had broken down. It just happened to be near this caravan. The husband was walking like 5 miles to the next town so he could get the repairs for the car. He was just gone for like a day and was on his way back. And then the woman told the reporter all of this, but still used the photo and still spun the story.
It's okay. Shush. It's like the one picture of, I think it's World War II, when the soldier comes back from war, and it's on postcards of this soldier like dipping this woman, and they're in what looks like a passionate kiss. But then when you know the story behind it, where that was like completely against her will, they didn't know each other. He just grabbed the first woman he saw, basically assaulted her, and everyone took a picture. I was like, oh my god, how romantic! And they still use it today.
Fucking
it's like, I don't know if you saw that video I sent you this morning, that Maddie guy in the UK. So this woman had made this like satirical video about like a real man is this. I don't know if you saw it. So a real man is this. And she lists all the things that these real men expect from women, right? Like you work a full-time job, you do the laundry, you take care of the kids, you make the food. She lists all these as like a real man. He then doesn't understand the satire of it or the irony, goes and he's like, every one of her points, he's like, are you delusional? This is a real... All the men in the comments are like, no wonder she's single. And then all the women are like, you kind of missed the point.
Yeah, it's kind of satirical.
Yeah, these are the things that men expect of women and have done for centuries. And now you're like, this is completely unbelievable.
Except for the work thing. They didn't want women to work until the 50s or until war broke out.
That's true. And then they wanted us back in the kitchen when the war was over.
Yeah, exactly. Know your place, bitch. Fucking hell. Yeah. I think I saw a bloke talking about stuff like that today on TikTok. I think he was just venting his frustration. I think he was going through relationship troubles. But and I kind of showed it to my partner, and she was like, he's just annoyed about all of the things that we've been annoyed about for decades.
That's the thing that kills me, is that like all the things that men are now complaining about are the exact same things that women and people of color and other marginalized communities have been complaining about forever. And now that it's finally hitting, some men, they're like, this is absurd. How do people live like this? We are being oppressed. It's like, no, the playing field is kind of finally leveled a little bit. Bit. You just don't like it.
Oh, because, this is actually linked a bit to my own bit of accidental misinformation I gave last week.
Yes.
My mistake.
Your liar, pants on fire.
Yeah. So to issue a retraction, because I know not everybody that listens to this follows my TikTok account. So I did explain it on there that last time I said that I think Whiffman, which is the original word for woman, I thought it meant not man, because of like, there used to be this, in about 1400s, I think, the idea was that there's only one gender and that women are basically failed men, like they're incomplete men. And I confused that with the Old English origins of the term of male and female and man and woman. So I did a bit of a deep dive this morning. It was quite interesting. So I found as well that a lot of the people that talk about where woman comes from, when they talk about it on TikTok and all that shit, they leave out the other half of it, which is about men. Like, because you have to talk about them together. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense where the term woman came from if you don't also talk about where man came from. And so the original word in Old English for man was weaponed man, and for a woman was withman, which is where wife comes from. And it's because weaponed man is a man with basically a human with a penis, and withman is a human that's a woman. So yeah. So it's basically, this is a male human and this is a female human, a weaponed man and a with man. And that's where the term man came from. So I now have a new theory that there must have been some point in history where the weaponed man bit was dropped and it just became man. And then woman became like different from the man. And I think that might be associated with the one gender thing, all that bollocks. So man, what used to be the collective term for all of us. And then we would differentiate between the two. But then we got lazy with the men bit because we thought, oh, no, men are what we're supposed to be. The women are the sub-Untermensch.
That's the problem with language getting lazy. Like I've seen a lot of like a cloister of feminists complain about the term manhole because it's like there's not just men who go down manholes, women work in that field, but it's also, it's not man, I'm a weaponed man, here is my hole. It's short for maintenance hole. We just got lazy with the language.
Yeah.
And shortened it to manhole, because who wants to say maintenance hole every time? So exactly. Knowing the origins of things does make a difference, although things evolve. And that's one of the problems that I think a lot of people have, is they don't let language evolve to a certain degree. Like they get really hung up on what words, like that guy who made the video defining patriarchy. It's like, well, the definition of that has evolved over time, as has the definition of a lot of other words, that some people don't let go of that original word.
Yeah. One of the things that I struggle with as a psychologist, I think, with that is that, how to word it? How to word the
thing about words?
Yeah. Is that, because words, I think there's been a lot of butchery over words, particularly in the last decade, and trying to create all these new words which are really nonsensical. And because all of these things, so there's like a difference between a word evolving and changing, like the word decimate. That is a pet peeve of mine, which means to remove 10%. And that comes from the Roman practice of decimation. So have you ever heard of this before?
Not the history of it.
No, okay. So what happened is that in the Roman legions, if their squad fucked up like really badly, they'd all have to draw straws, and the one with the shorts, there'd be 10 of them, and then they'd have a decimation, which means 10% of them had to die, and they don't know who it is. It's random, and the other 9 have to kill the one with the short straw. That's where decimate comes from.
But what a dark history of like, let's pull straws to see who goes first. Like that's I didn't know. Yeah. It's like when you learn that ring around the rosy is about the plague. Like
yeah, it is. Yeah,
that changes things a bit.
Yeah, and it's because because whatever they did was so heinous, then like it would be part of them having to kind of regain their honor. It's hardly ever done, and then they'd have to do it with sticks or their bare fists. So they had to really brutally murder the other guy. So
why does it bother you that that has evolved the way that it has?
Because people use it completely wrong now. Like they say, the team decimated the other side, or like the forest was decimated. And it's like, no, 10% of it hasn't been destroyed.
That's the same thing about also like the dulling of language. It's like when you hear guys playing video games and they're like, we raped them. It's like, you're a mechanical guy, like, or you're animated guy. Shot his animated guy. Like,
I don't think you're sodomizing anyone.
Yeah, there's words that just need to keep their definitions intact, because I think when you dull them, then it makes people not take it as seriously, right? It's like George Carlin did it. I think we talked about this before. George Carlin did a really good bit about this. When men came back from the First World War, they were shell shocked, and then it's evolved into post-traumatic stress disorder, which doesn't sound as scary, because somebody who's been through a trauma, you wouldn't say they were shell-shocked, you say they have PTSD. So people align it with those same things, and it waters down the language to a point where people don't take it as seriously anymore.
And I mean, PTSD is really a good example, because the whole concept of PTSD is a fucking joke now. Like, people getting PTSD literally from hearing a joke at work, and then that'll trigger PTSD. And then they're comparing that on the same level to someone that's been to war.
That's what bothers me when I used to, like, when Triggered first kind of hit the mainstream language. It's like, and I used to see it a lot when I was on Reddit. When I was losing weight, I was on a lot of, there was a couple subreddits for like people who were all encouraging each other to lose weight. And people like, oh, I was at Starbucks today and I heard someone talk about their diet and I felt triggered. It's like, really? Yeah. Really? You felt the same thing that like a woman or man who's experienced sexual violence would feel if they see a rape scene in a movie? You feel the same thing as if, someone who's been in a war-torn country has heard fireworks. It's the same hearing two women talk about salads like that.
Yeah. Same for you. There has to be a gradation of the language, surely. Like, and there are words.
And I think you could say I was bothered by that. I was embarrassed by that. I had emotions about that, but you weren't triggered by that to the same degree that somebody else.
So he's
seeking therapy.
Yeah. So here's a new thing I found out the other day. I can't remember which institution it is. The name escapes me, but it's they're making a joke out of anxiety, and they're basically not a literal joke. They're basically turning it into a joke. So this institution, I think it might be a hospital or a hospital university. They've created a measure so that people can take this test to see if they have anxiety. Great, fine, but it's for people who don't show symptoms of anxiety. So people like you and me who aren't anxious people, we take this test and it'll tell us if we have anxiety. No, if you don't have symptoms of it, you don't have anxiety. That's how anxiety works.
It's like my mom she started buying like lactose-free milk. And I was like, but you're not, like, you eat cheese and yogurt by count. You're not lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
Or she's like, oh, I can't eat this because there's so much sugar in it and my diabetes. I'm like, you don't have diabetes. And she's like, I know, because I do these things. But I feel like somebody who does have anxiety would be anxious taking that test. And that would be like enough of a sign to be like, oh yeah. You know what kills me is when people, they go out and they're like, oh, back in my day, we didn't have anxiety and we didn't have this and we didn't have this. And like, we didn't have as much cancer. It's like, we didn't have the diagnostics to know what we had, right? Like when people died, they just died. When women got their periods, you put them into asylums, right? Like,
yeah.
Like now we can name things. People are like, this never existed before. It did. We just didn't know what it was. Now we know what it is. We know what causes it, hopefully, how to treat it, hopefully, and can move forward. But to say that like, oh, this is it's since vaccines that people have been feeling anxiety.
Well, I mean, there wasn't, for example, like back in the day, there was like the so-called village idiot, wasn't there? And then now that person would have a place in the community now and like to be looked after and cared for. Like they might have Down syndrome or they might have a learning disability. And like, but there's no village idiots anymore.
But they used to just, if you knew that you had, like, if you had a child with Down syndrome, you would just put them into an asylum and like, oof, somebody else's problem.
What it used to be the responsibility of the church to look after people like that, people with mental illness. And they would basically be like, they weren't, depending on the church, I guess, is how brutalized they probably were and what kind of a life they had. But then it became quite commonplace that when the state started taking control of it and building the asylums, people used to be chained to the walls. So if they were really psychotic, they'd be put in a straitjacket or whatever, and they would be literally chained to the walls and treated like animals. And I can't remember what year it was. It was in the 1800s. There was this guy called Philippe Pinel in France, and he revolutionized mental health care because he had the bright idea one day. I wonder what will happen if we treat these people in psychosis, which they didn't have the word for, I don't think, back then. But if we treat them like a normal fucking human being, and I'll take him off the wall, I'll reason with him, we'll go for a walk in the grounds, he'll see the sunlight, improvement in mental health, less flipping out.
What a shocker.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's amazing, like, we know it seems so common sense now, but back in the day, like, that was a revelation that you could treat people like people and they will act like people.
Yeah. And then, but of course, we didn't have anything back then for like autism, schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, bipolar. These things like didn't exist in the sense of a diagnostic criteria for them or anything, or a mapped out condition that we understand, but they existed.
Well, it's like now as I dig into some like kick-ass facts and I'm learning about different things, and it's like, oh, the first, I forget what it was, but it's like the first reference of this in any sort of art or literature was in like the 14 or 1500s. They didn't know what it was called. They didn't have a name for it, but they knew what it was. Yeah. And like, we don't really know how they treated it. I think it was Down syndrome, that there were like old Renaissance artworks where you could see people in the paintings that had very characteristic facial features. And it's like, they didn't know what it was, but they knew that these people they were different. They had something that set them apart.
And the thing is that, again, the reason why a lot of these things we're diagnosing them more often now, and like we know more about how they exist, is because these people survive now. Like they live longer. Like if you're deformed, like in ancient Rome, they'd probably throw you off the Tarpeian Rock or something. But now people survive.
Well, have you started I think it's the second book in the series, the Giver series?
Yes. Yeah, I finished it. Yeah.
Oh, okay, excellent. Yeah. So the young girl, like she had a limp, or one leg was shorter than the other, and like the community was like, why is she even here? She should have been tossed into the woods because of that.
And then she was lucky to survive just because her parents had contacts.
Yeah, and then when her mom died, they were like, it's time to go, girl. Like they didn't even form a bond with her over these years. They were just like, your mom's gone. We can get rid of you.
Yeah.
Which one's the third one?
The third one it follows Matty from the second
Yes.
book. Yeah.
Yes.
And he's had a bit of an education and he's grown up a bit.
Yes. I like how that all ties together.
I'm looking forward to seeing how it all pans out. But yeah, so you don't know who Larry the Cat is. So we spoke earlier. I sent you a little video of Liz Truss, our new Imperator-in-Chief overlord, was rejected by Larry the Cat. He is a national treasure.
Is he really?
Yeah. So basically, okay, he is an employee, a civil servant of the government, and his official title is Chief Mouser.
That's adorable, but they should have got a rat terrier for that. Now, let me ask you a question. Is this the original Larry the Cat, or whenever Larry the Cat meets his demise, do they just bring in another cat that looks like him, like this is the new Larry?
No. There's only one Larry. Okay. But every department has had is traditional that they have their own cat. So we've got Larry's.
I love that.
Yeah, and some of them are inactive and gone on to new homes now, depending on which dickhead's in the house. So like, I don't think Kwasi Kwarteng likes cats, so I think that Palmerston's moved on.
So they retired the cat?
Yeah, like the cat goes to a proper home, it gets rehomed. But like, so Larry is number 10, so he lives at the Prime Minister's house. Freya lived at number 11, which was the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Then I think Palmerston is from the Treasury and Gladstone's from the Foreign Office.
How long has this been a thing?
The 60s or 70s?
No kidding.
Yeah. So I think that it was traditional that I think from the 60s or 70s that they had a chief mouser, and there's been about 4 cats in the title with the title. But then the other cats I think are a bit more casual appointments. And it's because like there's a nearby sort of like animal rescue center, I think in Battersea. There's like a famous dogs home there and stuff, Battersea Dogs Home. And then so they get they get a stray cat in and give them a home at number 10. You know?
Oh, that's quite nice.
Yeah. I think David Cameron and his wife, was it then that there was one that they didn't like cats, and then they got into trouble in the news for it. I think it was David Cameron and his wife.
It's kind of like wasn't Trump the first president who didn't have a presidential dog?
Yeah. And Boris Johnson got in trouble because him and Carrie had a dog and they didn't want a cat, but the public made them keep Larry at number 10.
You know who I love? I think, is it Ireland? Is it Ireland? Where I don't know if it's a prime minister or sorry, Ireland.
I think they're a republic.
I always had his dog with him, and like every time he was photographed, his like dog was beside him, and it was like like his aide. He always had his dog. I love that. Yeah.
Well, that's what Larry does at number 10. Like he just sits outside number 10 and he goes mousing around the place looking for.
Has he ever rejected anyone before, or is Liz Truss the first?
I think he's rejected individuals sometimes, but I think, in my knowledge, I might be wrong. I'm not like a savant when it comes to Larry, but it's the first time I've seen him outright reject and not like a prime minister like that.
Well, I mean, I've only seen a few clips of her, and she
has head girl energy.
So there was Fred Armisen used to do a character on Saturday Night Live, the Weekend Update, where he was a comedian, and like every time he would stop saying something, he would kind of like look at the audience in a way expecting laughter.
Yeah, and that's what she does.
She does, and it's really bizarre because she would say things that would like, yeah, it's like, no, that's not the right.
Yeah, that's not time for her.
It's so weird.
And the funny thing is, with her being rejected by Larry, like, because it was on a news broadcast, and the best bit about it is because she's one of those populist politicians who does stuff really cynically just to get people to like her, even though it never works. Everyone hates her. So she's shaking that other person's hand, and then she looks down and sees Larry sitting there so perfectly just next to them, and then it's like, oh, photo moment.
Here's a great moment.
Yeah, and then she goes to stroke him, and he's like, fuck that. And it's funny because he loves cuddles and strokes. Like you see it, there's footage on news channels of like the policemen and stuff.
Animals know energy. They know energy.
They do. I just think it's just nothing better than seeing a 6'2" Metropolitan Police officer tickling Larry's tummy on the doorstep of number 10.
Meanwhile,
Yeah.
well, 5'6" woman.
Yeah.
It would have been better if he hissed.
And I think one of the aides got in trouble once because, like about a year ago, I think, because he accidentally closed the door in Larry's face, and Larry was not happy.
Oh my! So I took my mom's dog, Maggie. Maggie is a 12-year-old diabetic who's lost her eyesight.
Oh,
I know, it's the saddest thing. And I think she's kind of lost some of her eyesight. Like, I think she's got her peripheral vision, because if I'm standing right in front of her, she looks at me like this. And she's not one usually to give side eye, so I think that's the only way she can see us. So we took her to get her nails done. And so as we're crossing the parking lot, we had to like go up a curb and down a curb. And as we're walking back out, she didn't see the curb, and then she just went like, poop, right? And like, Zeelool has on occasion been like staring at something across the street and run her face into a tree, and I laugh because she's an idiot. But when Maggie did it, because she's like old and blind, I was like heartbroken.
Yeah, poor little thing.
She's just the cutest thing, and then she just like whoosh.
One of my ex-girlfriends used to watch TV like that.
Did she have?
No, it's just what she did. Like I remember sitting there one day, and I could see her out the corner of my eye. I thought she was looking at me, and I was like, "What are you looking at?" And she was like, "Oh no, I'm just watching TV." And I was like, "Why'd you do it?" "I don't know. I've just done it since I was a kid."
I feel like maybe like her parents didn't let her watch TV, so she had to watch it like that.
Yeah.
Like my niece and I once, when she was like 5, she used to want to play school, which I think is weird because I don't.
Yeah,
I don't want to play work.
School.
Yeah, I don't want to play work. So I was visiting my mom's place because my mom used to take care of my niece after she went to school. So we were sitting there, and like the TV's on, like the news is on. So I'm trying to watch. My niece is trying to play school. So I would try to like do the same thing where I would like veer my eyes over to the TV, and then my niece would go 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. And so I was like, snap back, and then again, I veer over to the TV. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. The third time, she sent me to the principal's office, which was the dining room, and she was the principal. She met me when I got there. She went, "You gotta go to the principal's office." And then she ran over to the dining room when I got there, and she went, "Do you know why you're here?" She was 5. "Do you know why you're here?" I said, "Yes, miss. I'm not paying attention in class." "Okay, well, do better." And then she ran back. And like,
how old were you at the time?
33.
That just makes it better.
I know, when she's like, "You know why you're here?" "Yes, I do."
Stop watching TV in class. All right, Hobbit.
Yeah, I would try to like. So I feel like that's your girlfriend. Her parents are like, "Pay attention."
Ex-girlfriend.
Ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
What hurt your neck though? Like that would be. I feel like that would hurt your neck after a while. Although that's how I watched part of the movie. That I went to see Smile yesterday with my girlfriend, and there were a lot of jump scares, and you can almost feel when it was coming. So I found myself like sitting there like.
Thing is, I don't enjoy jump scares because I don't find them entertaining.
I just find that you get that like, oh shit, and then but it doesn't like. They kind of worked in this movie, but it would have worked better without it because it was creepy enough that they didn't need to like.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it was a good story and it was well done, but they just overdid it with the jump scares. And we go to early movies, especially when it's horror movies, because then we like a not crowded movie theater, especially because I think people now in horror movies try to act like the audiences in horror movie commercials.
Oh, yeah.
So we're like, it's a 4:00 show, and then we're going for dinner afterwards. There's not gonna be anybody there. We walk into the theater. There's like 6 other adults, right? Like 3 other couples, and then the back row is just this gaggle of 12-year-olds, and they immediately start with a jibber jabber, right? And my friend shushes them. And then I couldn't even 10 minutes into the movie, I couldn't even take it anymore. And it erupted from me where I just went, "For fuck's sake." It erupted out of me. And then like everybody else in the theater was like, "Sure, you're not the only ones here. Shut up." They wouldn't stop. So finally we see some guy go out and like he complained. So 2 theater staff come in and we could hear them like, "You're gonna get kicked out if you don't like calm your tits." He didn't use those words. He didn't,
Yeah.
But then they leave and like we see them all like walking out of the theater like it was a class trip. Like 12 of them. But it just ruins the whole thing.
It does. It does. I do find North American audiences are very different than British ones. Like most of the time, like if you're in like if you're in a movie where there's a lot of young people, it can be really annoying. But if you're in a movie where like if it's like a quite a tense film or something, in general, people are pretty well behaved in the UK, and you can hear a pin drop most of the time.
It's hit or miss. Like for the longest time, it was. And then I think what did it here anyway, when I started to notice it, is after the Paranormal Activity movies. Because every commercial they showed for Paranormal Activity showed the audience like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." And so then people started doing like, and it was the only movie that I remember them showing the audience reaction. And then it's like the next time my friend and I went to see a Paranormal Activity movie, the audience was reacting that exact way. And it's like, you're not in a commercial. Just watch the movie.
Calm the fuck down.
So I've noticed since then it's been, and like now, I think with the most that you usually hear is like the crunching of food. Yeah. Which once upon a time it was just popcorn, but now they sell like whole meals and people are eating like a platter of nachos and all you hear like, she wanted to go see The Quiet Place. And I was like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like the whole point of The Quiet Place is that it's quiet. Yeah. And you want to sit there watching The Quiet Place and hearing all around. Yeah. I was like, I will run amok if that's the case. Yeah. We're not doing it. I could get beer at the theater yesterday. What? For the first time ever. Yeah, I was like, we're getting refreshments before going in, and I see this tiny little beer fridge. And I was like, is that what?
I noticed a beer.
Like, I will take one of those, please. Thank you.
Yeah. I remember years ago seeing Final Destination in the movie theater, and I just laughed through most of that. That was such a shit film. Final Destination 2, I think.
It was a shit film, but I still cannot drive beside or behind like a logging truck.
Yeah. Well, the first film was good, but the second one was just like gimmicky after that.
Sometimes you just gotta let it go and like just appreciate that you had a good thing and don't cheese it up, as evidenced by what are we on the 87th Halloween movie?
It's too much.
Are you looking for fun new glasses that won't break the bank? Go to Zeelool.com. They have daily flash sales. You can find frames as low as $2. Prescription, non-prescription, sunglasses, they have it all. Use my promo code to save.
What should we talk about next?
Let's talk about that deepfake and how I think deepfake is going to be the end of us all.
Yeah. Right? Because that was a good deepfake.
I've seen a lot of really good deepfakes, and I don't know. I know you don't watch America's Got Talent, but there was an act on this year that they did this technology. It was like deepfake technology, but in real time. So they had the singer on stage, and in front of him was a camera, and then you could see on the screen behind him it was Simon Cowell singing. Right? It looked exactly like him, and then every time they came back, they did it again. Where the next time it was like Simon, and he was doing a duet with. I think it was with Elvis. This guy came out as like doesn't look like Elvis, but on the screen it was Elvis. And then they did the same thing with the rest of the judges. And it was in real time that they were doing it. Like these guys were on stage, they turned the cameras on, and there is, Terry Crews and Heidi Klum on stage. And it was so believable, except for Howie Mandel. It looked more like Paul Schaefer than like Mandel. But like imagine if that type of thing gets into the wrong hands, and then all of a sudden it's like people who are already incited towards certain proclivities then have a leader who would never say these things saying things. Like they could just it could be nuclear war is going to be
I mean, I'm surprised that hasn't already happened. Because there's a lot of personalities out there, both in the West and elsewhere in the world. There's a lot of personalities that are they have very fragile egos. And if you deep fake one of their opponents saying or doing something. I think if intelligence services have enough time to look at it, I think it'd be very easy to debunk the message quickly. What I'm more worried about is, I think in our current time at the moment in the West, where our democracies are they feel kind of volatile in a way, so I'm not too worried about the governments. I'm worried about the people seeing deep fakes, not knowing they're deep fakes, because even if it's debunked that it was a deep fake, people still they love to double down on shit.
And they also, like, even things that we've known for hundreds, if not a couple thousand years, people still don't believe, right? Like, there's still a flat earth conversation, even though we've known for thousands of years that it's round. So even if it was debunked, people would be like, that's just them they're trying to fake you out, right? Just like they did the moon landing, just like they did everything else. Yeah. And like, now there's people who think the war in the Ukraine is...
I know. Like, what's the shit about the windows? Is windows really your marker for there not being a war?
If you look at the comments, someone was like, oh, if you look at that window there, it looks like it's overlapping there. What's that about? It's bad design. That's what it's about.
Yeah, exactly.
It's shit architecture. That's what it's about. There's a whole subreddit called Bad Design.
And I like how they think that those cars are flipped over just from a bomb. Like, there are other things that flip over cars, like people, machinery, tanks.
But yeah, that's your whole, like, and it's funny. So I reported the video for misinformation, and they're like, no violations.
What? When I first joined TikTok, in the first 10 videos I did, 2 of them were flagged for misinformation and deleted. And I was talking about actual scientific stuff that I'm qualified.
No, I've reported a few videos where people like COVID misinformation. This one about the Ukraine misinformation. There was like a few others. There was another guy who was like making a series videos about why men should be allowed to hit women. So I reported out all no violations found. Oh my God. But I make a video correcting a man's grammar, and they're like, this is harassment and bullying. And I didn't get that video back.
What? Christina P gets banned all the time on TikTok because of stuff like that. So there was this one that, like, you'll hate the video. I'm not going to show it to you. But there's this video that this girl put up where she's eating some noodles, but then she's just got bare feet, and her feet are just black just from activity because she never wears shoes, and she's dragging her noodles over her feet and then putting them in her mouth. And then so Christina P duetted it, and all she said was feet, look at the feet, oh, the feet. And that was her response. That was her duet, and she got banned from TikTok for that, for bullying and harassment. And all she said was pointing out how dirty her feet were.
That's messed up. Like, the way that's messed up. You will be proud of me, though, because somebody requested a kick-ass facts on Morton's toe, and I did it. And you know how I like to put pictures into my video, so I had to look for pictures of feet. Well
done. So that's part of your desensitization program.
It's what do they call it? Immersion therapy.
Yeah. It's just so gross, though, isn't it? Some of this stuff. Like, I tell you what, there is a lot of shenanigans on TikTok because magically, right? I changed my account from a business account to back to a personal account. I've had like 150 extra followers in like a week. I've had one video get 3,000 views, and I'm getting way more comments and likes than I did before.
It's very bizarre how it puts things out. And like, someone had tested out, because I post 2 videos a day, and I'll get some comments where people are like, I haven't seen you in days. And it's like, and then someone had tested out, I think she has quite a large following, but she has like, I think it was like 5,000 or 6,000 friends, mutuals. So she put out a friends only video saying, like, if you were seeing this, please engage, because I want to see how far this video gets, because I'm testing something out. So it should have theoretically gone out to all 5,000 of her friends. So if you think that of those 5,000, maybe 10% aren't on TikTok for a few days or whatever, but you'd still think that you would get a significant amount. The majority of your friends would see that and engage. She had like 300 or 400.
What?
Yeah. So she's like, I don't understand why TikTok is just like thwarting or throttling my content, that it's not getting out there, because at least it should be going at least to your followers.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I know that TikTok has like changed their algorithm a couple of times, so they put it out to your followers, and if your followers engage, they put it out to other people. But it's just, they just keep moving the goalposts, so you don't know what's going to get out there and what's not. And like even the videos that I make, the ones that there are some that I don't think will go anywhere, that get massive amounts of views, and ones that I'm like, oh, this is a good one. Like this is
Yeah, it won't go anywhere.
nothing. They get nothing.
And then there's lots of theories that people have about you need a certain percentage of views to likes to comments. That is bollocks, though. I think
like if you get like 20% likes versus engagement. But the one thing that I know what has done is that if you get more comments than likes, it kind of tells TikTok that people are hate watching.
Yeah.
They don't like the content.
Yeah.
But I just don't know. If they were transparent with how they did things, it would be much easier to know how and when to engage.
I think as well as deepfakes, I think that the way that the social media companies operate is another problem that's facing Western society, because it is the very definition of Kafkaesque. Like, there are a set of rules, okay? They're enforced by people who we don't know who they are. We can't contact them. We can't interact with them. Those rules change frequently. They don't tell us about the changes. We have to jump through hoops that we know there are hoops to jump through, but we don't know which hoops you have to jump through and when. And then if you violate the rules that you don't know what they are, if you violate them, you get banned, you get removed, all sorts of horrific repercussions for things considering the crime, right? So the crime of what you do doesn't equate to the punishment. And then somehow the people who do actual crimes are getting away with it.
Yeah, and it's not consistently applied.
Yeah.
Because if you have like two people doing the exact same thing, but one looks a different way than the other, then it's like, oh, that's a violation, but that one's not. Yeah.
And what's happening on TikTok is like, you're talking about like with, if you've got somebody that's doing misinformation or they're misogynistic, but like if it's all type of stuff in a certain way, they get away with it. On YouTube, it's the other way around. If you say anything that's remotely touching on conservatism, then your account will get throttled or banned or whatever. The big media companies can say all of the shit that they want. People like CNN, NBC, and all of that. They can talk utter drivel, and they can give complete scientific misinformation about COVID, and they're allowed to have their content up there and have millions of views. But somebody like me, I can't do the same thing. I can't talk about my views, even though I'm qualified and they're not. I actually have education in these things and I can talk about them, whereas you're just a fucking journalist. And what you're saying is wrong. Like Rachel Maddow, she said about the vaccine that if you get the vaccine, you won't spread COVID, you can't catch it. That clip of hers is still up on YouTube. Yeah, that is misinformation. That is factually incorrect. We knew from day one it was incorrect, and she can still have that up there. If I go on and say, yeah, well, there's problems with vaccine efficacy. You can still catch COVID and you can still spread COVID even if you've got the vaccine. All it does is it means that if you get COVID, it's less bad for you when you get it. But you are still likely to be asymptomatic and you can still spread it to other people. So they'll probably need to get vaccinated too. But even though I've cast doubt on the efficacy of vaccines, they will ban that video if it goes viral. Yeah. Even though I'm right. I've read research papers. The research papers say this.
And as have other doctors and
epidemiologists.
It's not such a hard fucking word for me to say. Epidemiologist. I have to take a running start at it. Epidemiologist.
Yeah, and I think they've got a lot to answer for the social media and the journalism, because I had it didn't even have to be an argument with somebody, but they said that I was naive. So it was on one of our mutuals videos, and then it was nothing to do with her, but somebody had commented in the thing. And then she was talking about, this woman was saying about how she wears a mask all the time, even outside and stuff. And I was like, if that gives you comfort, then go for it. But just to let you know, you don't actually need to do that because COVID doesn't spread that way. And then she started attacking me for being naive and stuff. I'm like, I'm supporting you in your personal choice to wear the fucking thing. And it's up to you to do that. That is your right. I'm just telling you what the science says.
But you're kind of not supporting her though, because you're like, you do you, but you're wrong, is what you're saying.
But that's besides the point,
naive. Though. You weren't being naive. You're being a bit of a dick. That's right.
No, because No, because there's a thing though that like it's the COVID doesn't spread outdoors. We've known that for a year and a half. That like you don't need 2 meter distance outdoors. We know this because of the BLM rallies. COVID didn't spread, but at the Trump rallies, when people were indoors, COVID spread between them because they were
They have spread at the, I think it was early days, or maybe a year in, there was a Sturgis motorcycle rally in the US, and that's all outdoors, and that became a super spreader event. So there have been outdoor super spreader events.
But that was back in Alpha, when Alpha was spreading like wildfire at the time. And it was and then we had more stringent testing measures at the time, which affects the figures as well. But then the other thing is that, and then people were more symptomatic. So we don't know like how many of those people are asymptomatic that are doing the spreading. But the other thing is that that's also just one event. Like that could have been like an anomaly. So like what this person was saying to me is like, yeah, tell that to like some people at some Super Bowl event. And I'm like, yeah, but that's one case. That's one case among many. Like there's millions of people in the world that like it doesn't spread in that way. Like if you're in, it's a numbers game, right? So like if you're indoors and you're around vulnerable people, then you should absolutely wear a mask. Like you're a bit of a dick if you go into a doctor's office and don't wear a mask to protect your doctor. And that's the other thing is masks don't protect you, they protect other people. You'll still catch COVID if you wear a mask. And like people, they like, but if I say this, I'm the one spreading misinformation. I just don't get it. Like it's like, look, because of everything the way it is at the moment, and how scared everybody is that like you do you if it gives you comfort, okay? Because at the moment, the pandemic and everything is still going on. The world is a scary place right now. And if you get comfort from wearing a mask all the time, then fucking do that. But don't push it on other people, because at the end of the day, the science, it doesn't support your view. They're like, it doesn't.
Even if it does, I still think it's kind of like religion, right? You're free to believe whatever you want. Just don't, your beliefs are your beliefs. So I still kind of get that same thing that even if the science speaks in either way, people are still free to have to make their own choices and do their own thing. So even if it's proven that yes, masks do what we hope that they would do, and people still choose not to wear them, that's on you, but I'm going to protect myself, right? And I'm not going to give you shit for not wearing one if you don't give me shit for wearing one. Let's just live and let live.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not being an asshole is really the easiest thing there is to do.
I wasn't an asshole though.
I'm not saying you're an asshole. I'm saying just like in general, just like minding your business. There's nothing easier than minding your own business, but some people just can't.
I know. Like the looks I get like locally, because nobody around here wears their fucking mask anymore. It's like, oh, it doesn't exist anymore. But every time I go into a pharmacy or the doctors or something, I always put my mask on. And I get such weird looks from people. Like sometimes if you walk out and then you forget that you've got your mask on, I get such filthy looks from some people. Yeah.
I will definitely, like I had to go get an x-ray. So I had to go to the hospital, get one. And our hospital still has mandatory masks inside. And I feel like hospitals should be one of those places that it should always have been.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like pre, post COVID, like it should always have been. But it's one of the only places that, and there's another place that does mobility aids for seniors, and they have a sign outside saying like, we work with vulnerable people, so you're wearing a mask when you come in here, just to protect everybody. Yeah. But I will still, like if I go into a convenience store or somewhere where there's not a ton of people in there, I won't wear one. If I'm the only person in the store, I'm not going to bother. But like if I go to the grocery store, I do, because people in grocery stores have no sense of personal space.
No. So, they don't. And also it is
my mom once, I was telling the story. My mom once was like, I don't know how you buy corn on the cob, but here they just put it in like a massive box and you've got to like weed through the corn on the cob. And my mom is one of those people that like opens it up to see what's going on inside, even though they tell you not to. She does, as does everybody else. So she's looking for corn on the cob, and this woman's arm, like my mom was like standing like this, right? Looking for corn on the cob, and a strange arm came underneath my mom's.
What?
I was like, "What, do you want to dance with me?"
Yeah.
Because my mom has no chill. She has
well, that's fucking brilliant.
But yeah, she got into a fight the other day at the This guy almost hit their car, and they ended up at the same place. They were going to a bakery, so he almost hit her car. And when they get in, my mom's like, "Hey, asshole!" She starts giving him shit, and the guy's wife is like, "Hey, relax." And she's like, "I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to your asshole husband."
Yes.
She would not let it go. Would not let it go. And I was like, "Mom, you're gonna get beat up one day." One day.
She has that like old woman invincibility.
Yeah, she's got old lady balls.
Yeah. Oh man. So like a grocery store is a really good place to wear the mask still, because they tend to, unless you're in like a supermarket, they're to be quite close together. People don't keep 2 meter distance when they're queuing, and people are touching shit. And even though it doesn't transmit on surfaces specifically, it doesn't last there very long. But you still got all of that vapor and moisture in that vicinity of people just standing there breathing on stuff.
Oh yeah, people like, and especially like our produce departments are the worst. The worst. Because like my mom, people just will like walk up and reach over you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't like that before COVID. I certainly don't like it now.
Yeah.
How do we get onto COVID? How do we get back here?
Scientific misinformation.
Oh yeah.
And then how it's all tied in.
It's like when they
together.
used to think women's uteruses would just fall out.
Yeah. Man, some of the stuff that people have believed in the past, Jesus Christ. Oh, and apparently
when I was a kid and I got the measles, it was believed that in order to help cure the measles faster, I would have to wear red. So I had red pajamas, red socks, red robe. I wore red because that's what helped get rid of measles.
How do you feel about porridge? Do you like porridge?
Is porridge oatmeal? Or
yeah.
is it different than oatmeal?
No, it's oatmeal.
I like oatmeal.
So my cousin, years ago, when we were little kids, or like 8 or 9, and he had a cold, which my uncle decided it was the flu. And so he sat my cousin in the bath and poured cold porridge all over him.
Well, it's like they used to use leeches.
Yes. And then,
I think some parts of the world still do, actually.
Oh, well, we use leeches in our hospitals here. Leeches are maggots. They're quite common in NHS hospitals.
Maggots, too?
Yeah. Once when my grandmother was in hospital, there was a woman in the bed opposite who had gangrene, and then so they used like the maggots on there to eat the gangrene. But like the other woman was like one of those people who, you know, like you're saying the other day, people who like to be ill, and so she had a gangrenous leg out in full view with all the maggots on it, so everyone could look at it. Yeah. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Mate, yeah, fucking people.
My grandmother had ton of lots of her stuff around, and I think I've made videos about this like way back in the day. Like she used to believe that the first 3 days of a woman's period she should wear a hat because she thought that the blood that came out during your period started at your head and worked its way down. So for your first 3 days, it was all up here, and if you didn't wear a hat, it could cook inside your head. She also said you shouldn't suntan or be outside in the sun when you're on your period because it'll cook inside your body and not.
This is exactly what happens if you don't send people to school.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And like even she did not believe that viruses transmitted through people and contact of things. She thought it was like when you go outside and get a draft, or if you go outside and your hair is wet, that's how you get sick. So like early days of COVID, we were trying to like get her to wear a mask if she went out and wash her hands more and do all that stuff. And like she'd cough into her hand and then be like, oh, pretending to wash her hands. But she was 98, right? Like,
yeah,
maybe she wasn't all that wrong. What else did she believe? Oh, she believed that if you, this is important for you to know as a wearer of glasses, that if you go outside with your glasses on, you have to keep them on, because if you take your glasses off and your eyes get a breeze, you could lose your eyesight. If you mixed temperatures in your mouth, so if you had like hot food, cold drink, or vice versa, your teeth would fall out. If you eat fish and drink milk, you'll get vitiligo.
No way.
Yep. What else? Oh, if you walk around barefoot, it'll affect your bladder, so you will never have like a solid stream of pee again. It'll be like, boop, 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 boop.
Oh, that's what I did wrong. Okay.
Yeah. And she used to believe that like drafts are the devil. That if you caught a draft, it gave you like nerve damage somehow. She'd be like, oh. They're all Maria. She'd be like, oh, Maria. She was sitting in a window and like the sun was hot on her face in the window, and then the doorbell rang and she opened the door and she got a draft in her face and her face was like this. She firmly believed it. Oh, Maria was she was ironing and her face was hot from the iron, and then she opened up a window and her face was like this.
Poor Maria.
Yeah, it's always Maria. And then my sister one day, when she was like 50 or 60, my grandmother was over visiting, and my sister had just gotten out of the shower, so her hair was wet, and she walked over to the refrigerator and opened it up, and my grandmother started freaking out, and my sister closed the fridge door and went, what's wrong? And my grandmother never opened a refrigerator door without a towel over her head.
Fucking hell.
She had like, she was 90, in her 90s when she moved in with my parents. She had like very short, thin, 90-year-old woman, wispy hair. So like when she would wash her hair, it's dry. But she would wash her hair at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and then she wouldn't come downstairs until noon because her hair needed to dry fully and completely before she came down the stairs at breakneck speed. The wind. She was very.
Wow.
She's very bizarre. Yeah, she's a very bizarre woman. She had a
Superstitions
lot of
are
old
weird.
wives' tales. Yeah.
Yeah, superstitions are weird ones.
You can't whistle at night because it
Yeah.
tells the evil spirits where you are.
This one's less funny, but my auntie, who was the wife of the guy with the porridge, I found like a little crucifix thing, but it was like a Gaelic one. So we were on the caravan site as kids, and because it had like a green stone in it, so she said like, "Oh no, I can't keep that. Throw it out." And I was like, "Why?" She was like, "It's got green on it."
Oh, my grandmother used to have like these little religious medallions on a safety pin, and every day when she would get dressed, she would safety pin it into her like slip because she wore a slip, so she always had it with her.
Interesting.
And she used to give me like, I had to travel once for work, so she gave me this like St. Christopher that had like the medallion in it, and she's like, you have to keep this with you. And then she would test me occasionally. I'd go over to visit her and she'd be like, do you have it? And I'd have to like pull it out of my wallet to show her.
Yeah, I've got it. Please don't hurt me.
Yeah. And my mom is a little bit, but not so much. She has this like red ribbon thing that if you tie a red ribbon onto something, it deflects any jealous eyes. So when I first got like my car, and it was like a 5-year-old green car. Like no one was jealous. It was a 5-year-old green car. But she like the first time she got into my car, she tied a little red ribbon on my visor. So keep jealous eyes away.
It makes me wonder, like, just thinking of it like a psychologist, like I wonder where all these things have come from. Like, because these things evolve for a reason, right? Somebody's thought this up at some point.
I think it's like, like the first black cat that crossed someone's path. Maybe they like, went to look at like, oh, that's a nice black cat, tripped over something, and they were like, that black cat caused me to trip. And like maybe it's those like oral histories of how things evolve into it happened to one person, and so then it just becomes that tale.
Well, I'm wondering, like with the red ribbon thing in particular, because that sounds like a really symbolic thing. Like whether it's like the ribbon or the act of tying or the color, something
it's got to
about
be
that.
red. It's got to be a red ribbon, red string. It's got to be red something. It probably I'll have to look into it because it probably goes back to some like religious something or other.
Yeah. Well, probably something pagan. It's usually pagan.
It usually is.
Yeah. All the best
I'll
stuff's
have
pagan.
I'll do some research on that one and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because she would do it. And then she was like, because I think when Mothers Against Drunk Driving, they had ribbons that they would tie on like your car antenna. And I think they were pink, but I think they had red ones for a while. And my mom's like, when you see those, it's not Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It's Mothers Against the Evil.
Brilliant. And that whole evil eye thing, that's totally pagan. And like I thought that they have that in Turkey as well, don't they? I think it's quite a Mediterranean
Italy has
thing.
it too.
Yeah.
I think Italy has it. Because a friend of mine in high school, she's Italian, and she would tell us that if someone like, you would say like cornies to like deflect. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it correctly. That's how we bastardized it into but you would have to like say something it's like the knocking on wood and all those other superstitions.
Yeah. I've got a book somewhere. I haven't finished reading it. I started reading it about 10 years ago and I never finished it. But it's all about where these things come from. Like basically Christmas itself, where did that come from? And like we know, like the more recent stuff, that like Christmas trees were because of like the Queen's family and like the tree gift from Germany and all that stuff. So it's a German tradition, but
Sure. I don't think it is. The first instance or documented instance of a tree decorated for Christmas was in the 1500s. I think, if memory serves, I'll have to confirm it. I think in what is now the Czech Republic or Czechia. I think they changed the name.
Czechia, yeah.
Czechia.
Czechia, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense because it like it would spread, and that's why Germany had it to give to England. So because obviously they're neighbors. So if it started in Bohemia or something, and then got,
I'll have to confirm it. I'll fact check.
That makes sense. So like it does ring a bell. But there's so many other traditions, like like the act of gift giving at Christmas, and like there's something to do with the gift giving at Christmas and connected to charity boxes. When you go into a shop. And it comes because of back in the day, I can't remember the year, fuck, idiot. But it's like they used to have Christmas boxes.
So hard on yourself.
I know. It's just I still haven't adjusted to my bad memory. But they used to have Christmas boxes on in workshops and things. So like you go see like the carpenter, and then you get like the kids' toys for Christmas and stuff. And then so all the apprentices in the trades, because they earned such little money, they put a little box out on the counter. And then all of the rich, well-to-do people would drop off a few coins for the apprentice, so he could have a good Christmas.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's where it started, like 100 years ago.
Wasn't
Anyway.
that lovely?
Yeah. On that note, we should probably finish because I need a rest.